Hello friends, if you're new, welcome to my channel. Why don't you go down, hit the subscribe button, and ring the bell so you don't miss any episodes. As for my fans and subscribers, welcome back. Thank you for the patronage. Today's topic is Daniel and the Four Kingdoms Schema. This is from the statue in Nebuchadnezzar's dream. In the ancient Near East, people were preoccupied with the transfer of power, as can clearly be seen in the Sumerian and Egyptian kings lists. By the first millennium BCE, this interest shifted from individual kings to a series of international empires. The earliest evidence that we have found to date is recorded in the works of two Greek authors, Herodotus and Ctesias. Despite this fact, the Four Kingdoms Schema is not of Greek origin, but Persian. Herodotus stated that he used Roman sources, and Ctesias served as court physician to Artaxerxes II, 404 to 359 BCE. Both authors tell us that sovereignty was transferred from the Assyrians to the Medes, then to the Persians. Ctesias describes all of these as vast world empires. This schema legitimizes Persian domination and is consistent with the Persian ideology. Although Alexander the Great did present himself as the legitimate successor to the Persian kings, we have no evidence that Greek historians tried to appropriate the Four Kingdoms Schema and presented Greece as the fourth kingdom. The Roman Empire, on the other hand, did use this schema from the 2nd century BCE until it ended. In the book of Daniel, this schema differs in both structure and function. There's discontinuity between the kingdoms represented by the statue and the kingdom represented by the rock that shatters the statue. The author also adapts the sequence of these kingdoms to better fit the Jewish experience. From the Persian perspective, the sequence is Assyria, Media, and Persia. This reflects the true transition of power. However, the author substitutes Babylon for Assyria. This creates an historically wrong sequence because Media did not rule after Babylon. Thus, this transformed this schema into a model of resistance rather than a true representation of the transition of power. The description of the dream gives the parts of the statue brief but equal attention, whereas the interpretation does not. Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom is given the most interpretation, and the second and third kingdoms receive only brief descriptions. While the author does not present these kingdoms as divinely authorized like Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom, they are not presented in negative terms either. The second kingdom, Media, receives only one sentence, while the third is described in its breadth of power. From a Jewish standpoint, this made sense. Not only was the Persian Empire immense, but the Jewish communities that lived in the Persian Empire lived in it for over 200 years. The chapter's author lived in Hellenistic times, as can be seen in the fact that he concludes this sequence with a fourth kingdom, which the author presents as the turning point in history. And many historians do concur that the Greek kingdom was the turning point. The author presents this kingdom in terms of its destructiveness. Iron, the material that represents it in the dream, is presented as shattering and breaking everything. Verse 40. This reflects the rapid and violent impact that Alexander the Great had on the Persian Empire. The fact that the author writes that it will crush the three previous kingdoms refers to a symbolic and cultural, not literal, impact. Some saw the Hellenistic Empire as a break from the sequence of Near Eastern kingdoms, which is basically why people saw this as a significant turning point in history. Many modern historians concur with this view, as stated previously. The actions of the Hellenistic Empire in destroying its predecessors foreshadows the actions of the everlasting kingdom. The author of this chapter frames this kingdom as the counterpart of the final kingdom, which is the everlasting kingdom of God. When the author refers to the iron-clay mixture of the toes, he is alluding to the fact that after Alexander's death, his generals divided his empire among themselves. For the ancient Near East, only two of these generals were relevant: Ptolemy, who ruled Egypt, and Seleucus, who based his power in Mesopotamia and Syria. Since the dream only mentioned legs and feet, it is safe to assume that the toes were redactional additions. In verse 41, we find a statement about the inherent instability of a kingdom that is divided, even though it emphasizes the strength of the iron. Verse 42 also emphasizes the strength and weakness of two parts of the kingdom, alluding to Ptolemy and Seleucus. God resumes his active role in verse 44 in setting up another kingdom, yet this kingdom is differentiated from the others. The author does not refer to it as a fifth kingdom, which implies that it does not belong to the sequence. It is also described as an everlasting kingdom, and it shatters the previous kingdoms. Little is said about this final kingdom, apart from it being everlasting. The author adds a detail in the concluding imagery: the rock is cut from a mountain. This led Christian theologians to interpret this as a Messianic kingdom, but it is far more likely that the author is either referring to universal sovereignty exercised by Israel or the direct sovereignty of God manifested on earth, since Jews have a far different interpretation of Messiah than Christians. In this case, it seems likely that the author envisions God ruling through a revived Israel, since previous authors have already said that both Nebuchadnezzar and Darius recognized the sovereignty of the Jewish God. You didn't think that we were done with Constantine, did you? No, we're just getting started on him. He is one of a long line of emperors who have used the Four Kingdom schema to legitimize his rule, as will be seen in the next episode. Well, friends, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, press the subscribe button, and if you want to know when I come out with new content, hit the bell next to the subscribe button. My Twitter, Discord, email, PayPal, and website links are in the description, along with the source that I used for this particular episode. If you wish to contact me, the best way is Twitter, next best is email. Also, please leave comments in the comment section. Not only do I love hearing from you, but it also helps the YouTube algorithm. If you have any suggestions, you can leave those down there as well. Remember, I choose my comment of the week from my edited videos. If you want to be in the running, leave a comment on an edited video. Keep learning and searching for truth. Here are a few videos from my library. If you have not watched them yet, go ahead and watch them and tell me what you think. Until next time, friends, stay safe and goodbye.